My dad collected the Conan comics as a kid, and when we came of age, which was about 8 or 10 in my case, we got to read those Conan stories. So you can imagine me 10 years old on the floor of his library reading The Tower of the Elephant.
Hey, you Stygian dogs, with the community abuzz over the Robert E. Howard House and the fundraising efforts to preserve it for future generations, this seemed like a perfect moment to share a conversation that I had with H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard scholar Bobby Derie from Howard Days 2025, recorded right on the steps of the Howard House in Cross Plains, Texas. And who is Bobby Derie, you might ask? I'll let him introduce himself.
I'm Bobby Derie. I'm author of Weird Tailors, Essays on Robert E. Howard and Others. I also run the blog Deep Cuts in a Lovecraftian Vein, which does all sorts of obscure stuff, especially that focused on lesser-known authors, minorities, women, LGBTQ. For the most part, you know, the Lovecraft people think, oh, he's the Howard guy, and the Howard people think, oh, he's the Lovecraft guy. So I straddle the two worlds. My dad collected the Conan comics as a kid, and when we came of age, which was about 8 or 10 in my case, we got to read those Conan stories. So you can imagine me 10 years old on the floor of his library reading The Tower of the Elephant. And when I got a little bit older, he let me read his Weird Tales, and he let me go into his library to read the Call of Cthulhu fiction. And that's really where I got started with my love of Robert E. Howard. I didn't get into Howard's scholarship until about 2015 when I was writing my first book, Sex and the Cthulhu Mythos, which has a whole section on Robert E. Howard. And it was the first time I read his collected letters. And I contacted Jeff Shanks on Facebook, and I said, you know, I'm really impressed with the collected letters, but there's no index. Is there a plan to do an index? And he said, well, I'm supposed to be doing it. Can I do it? Sure. So that's what I did. And my first book with the foundation was the index to the collected letters of Robert E. Howard, which won a Robert E. Howard Foundation Award. And it's my first time coming to Cross Plains in 2016, winning an award. And I've been coming back ever since. And ever since 2017, my little contribution to everything here has been a free giveaway book. Right. And the first one was the Robert E. Howard Bar Guide, which was all the alcoholic drinks that he talked about in his stories, in his letters, little snippets about that interspersed with 1920s cocktail recipes taken from cocktail books at the time, just so people could get an idea of the flavors he had. Robert E. Howard had some breakout characters in Weird Tales. And Weird Tales was in that unique position of being a pulp, but of a higher literary mindset and highly integrated with its fan base. The Eyrie, the letters page of Weird Tales, was the go-to for weird fiction fandom before it was known as weird fiction fandom. And that led to everything that came after. That led to Lovecraft and the foundation of Arkham House in 1939. Arkham House also published one of the earliest collections of Robert E. Howard's work a little later. And Howard has always lagged Lovecraft by about a decade or so, just because he did not have someone like August Derleth and Donald Wandry that were seriously promoting Howard's work. But there was always that fan base. And then in the 1950s, Gnome Press brought everything out in hardback that was inspired by Arkham House, doing the same thing with Lovecraft. But Howard had more work. And at that point, he was getting a new audience, a new fantasy adventure audience, which Lovecraft didn't have. And from there, it just sort of started to explode. The 60s fantasy paperback boom made Howard readily available. Marvel started doing the comic books in the 1970s. The film came out in 82, and that was another notch up. And it's just built and built and built from there. But it all works because people love Howard's characters. They love how he writes action. They love how he has these elemental battles. And the way he builds up the stories is a lot like a boxing promoter. He doesn't have simplistic moral characters. You know, he doesn't have very black and very white conflicts. They're always morally gray. There's always more going on there. There's always more than just pure love and pure heart and saving the princess. No, maybe the princess is snotty. Maybe the wizard actually has something going on for him in his own right. And the bad guys in Howard are very compelling. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about. But when you look at like the Phoenix on the Sword is as much Thoth-the-Mon's story as it is Conan's. And those compelling villains help make the heroes as compelling because now you have forces in conflict and you can see them coming together and you want to see who wins. It's like a boxing promoter breaking up all these fighters to say, this is more than just a grudge match. This is a conflict of civilizations and cultures and eras, and something's going to end. One of these two is going to die. One's going to lose. And that's not just going to be one guy getting the shit kicked out of him. It's going to be the end of a race, the end of a civilization, the end of thousands of years of development is going to come crashing down in this moment, and you're going to watch it. And it's that kind of buildup and excitement and the sense of a bigger world, which has always drawn people in, no matter what he's writing, whether he's writing boxing or historical adventure or fantasy or science fantasy. There is that sense that there's more than what is on the page. And that's what draws people to it. And that's what draws people to write it.
For those who are interested, and why wouldn't you be, Bobby Derie's Robert E. Howard's Bar Guide is available for digital download. Check the video description. For Howard Days this year, Bobby was handing out The Selected Letters of Novelyn Price Ellis, Volume 2, and an online search will reveal a plethora of interviews with and essays and articles by Bobby Derie. Just last night, I read a great one on one of my absolute favorite writers, Henry Miller. It's titled 6 Degrees of Lovecraft, Henry Miller. It's great. So I encouraged you to take a Derie deep dive. And I'll let you know that Bobby Derie is joining Howard fans Bob Byrne, John C. Hawking, Stephen Shrewsbury, and Michael K. Vaughan on the official Robert E. Howard Foundation YouTube channel. They'll talk about the Howard House as we all do what we can to preserve this special place for future generations. Be sure to watch and subscribe there. For more Howard Days content, check out my Fists on the Porch video and my review of Will Oliver's Life and Times of a Texas Author. Thanks for watching, liking, consider subscribing. Thank you so much to Bobby for making the time to chat with me back in June. And until next time, take it easy, you Stygian dogs.